This lesson will talk about percents and how they relate to decimal numbers as well as fractions. First of all, what does percent mean? Percent means out of 100. If I have a look at my hundredths grid, this whole thing represents one whole, or 100%. If I want to represent 42%, I would simply color in 42 out of 100. That's 42%, which is the same thing as 42 hundredths. And if I wanted to think of that as a fraction, that's the same thing as 42 out of 100, also pronounced 42 hundredths. In my next example, I have 9%. Notice that 9 out of 100 of the little squares are colored in. This is the same thing as 9 hundredths, if I want to write a decimal number, or 9 out of 100, or 9 hundredths as well, in fraction form. This example shows 78%. 78 out of 100 of the squares are colored in yellow. So I can write as a decimal number 78 hundredths, and as a fraction I can write 78 out of 100. I can also simplify that fraction by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2 to get my 39 out of 50. If I don't have an actual grid, I can still always relate my percent to a fraction and a decimal number. So this is 2%, which means I have 2 out of 100. Or if I wanted to think of that as a decimal number, that would be 2 hundredths. All of these are equivalent. 2%, 2 out of 100, or 2 hundredths. My next example, if I'm given a fraction, 8 out of 10, I know that 8 out of 10 is the same thing as 80 out of 100, which would equal 80%. And if I wanted to think of that as a decimal number, 80% just means 80 hundredths. And I could also write 8 tenths because we know that that is equivalent. So all of these numbers, whether they be percents, fraction, or decimal numbers on this page, are all equivalent. In my last example, I have 12 hundredths. So again, just listening to how I say it, and this is why it's important to say our numbers properly, 12 hundredths means 12 out of 100, so I can write that as my fraction, and 12 hundredths, so 12 out of 100, would equal 12%, since percent means out of 100.